Cobra Kai Season 6 feels weird, right? I mean, it's the same old show and continues exactly where Season 5 ended, but something just seems off, no? I guess some people have issues with the introduction of Mr. Miyagi's past, having concern it will ruin his character and potentially his legacy. From what we've already seen, the ideas presented go completely against what his character was and stood for. So having that concern is understandable for sure, but to get to the point he was in the first Karate Kid film, it is totally plausible that he had a past that extends beyond just the death of his wife, such as this necklace robbery subplot, and that really bloody Sekai Taikai captain headband. I 100% get why people don't like this, don't get me wrong. Mr. Miyagi is a character now that is 40 years old whose actor has sadly since passed away, making it a really difficult subject to revisit. But with how great the creatives are behind this show, I trust that they will honour this character's legacy and, if anything, will only improve upon them. The only caveat to this being that this is sort of meant to be a backdoor pilot to a prequel series for Mr. Miyagi. Now, whilst I don't hate this as an idea, because I love the show and the world that is built within it, due to the lack of a concrete answer as to whether this show will actually be made, I hope they at least give us enough closure in these remaining 10 episodes to not leave the plotline unresolved. As long as that happens, I'm sure by the end of Season 6 that the fans will have turned around and not hate this plot as much as it seems they do currently. This season's other issues include its, how do you put it, strange release strategy. It is a very odd format, releasing 15 episodes in 3 separate chunks at 3 separate times. I don't really know of another show that has done that. I guess the closest thing I can think of is Stranger Things Season 4, which released in 2 volumes, but they were released within a month of each other, and the second part was only 2 episodes. Regardless, I'm sure this is more a Netflix issue, with them trying to milk every last penny they can out of this show's popularity while they still can. But I also do think this was done with some level of acceptance on the writer's behalf, in the fact that I believe they must have wrote this season knowing that that was the plan, because it is brave enough to switch up the runtime of your seasons 5 years into the show's release, but throwing in the release schedule on top of that, it really is enough to make anybody skeptical. And I think you really can feel that switch up in this first 5 episode chunk that we got. Unlike other seasons, it doesn't have that tension from the get-go, as Season 5 was as close to a series finale as you're going to get, with most loose ends tied up. Everyone sort of ended on the same side, or at least in a neutral stance to each other, meaning there was minimal conflict going into this season. The only real narrative thread from the last season being Kreese on the Run and the Sekai Taikai. But that tournament was a very loose thread anyway, as that was more of Silver's plan than Kreese's from what we saw. All of this made the first part of this season kind of lack excitement. At least excitement for the future, as it was not easy to see where all these threads were going to intertwine. This season has no major conflicts between the characters we know, and has to set them back up again with the introduction of Kreese's new champion Quan and the betrayal of Tori. That inner conflict between our main characters was a staple of the show, and was kind of what kept the drama at an all-time high throughout the seasons, as well as covering the gaps between them. It was one of the major fuels of excitement going into every new season, and I don't think we had that with this one. Individually, these 5 episodes were on par with everything we've had before, but because of the heavily reduced stakes of this season when compared to all of the others, this first part feels like pure setup for the next 2, which is fine, right? We usually get 10 episodes a season, and now that's all the episodes we have left. Everybody we know, new or old, is now in the same location, and that can allow for these conflicts and the tension to build in these next 2 parts. We had these 5 episodes just to get ready for the tournament, learn new backstories, bring in new bad guys, and in the process get 5 new amazing Cobra Kai episodes, on top of what we usually get. For me, this is simply a win-win. These 5 episodes alone may not seem super impactful as of now, or feel as good as seasons that came before it, but I don't think it needs to just yet. This season, despite its weird release schedule, is 15 episodes, not 5. So why is it getting so harshly judged on those 5? We normally get 10 episodes and the creatives always smash it out the park. These episodes simply allowed for a smoother transition from seasons 5 to 6 and make it easier to tell the story they want to. Although it's labelled as Season 6 Part 1, in my eyes it's almost like a Season 5.5, a prologue to Season 6, an Act 1 of a movie. Some elements, sure, you have to suspend your disbelief, like these kids with 2 years of karate experience at the most, competing at a world level championship, or somehow nearly 80-year-old fugitive Kreese being able to traverse countries freely and somehow wrestle a cobra with his hands. There are elements like this that aren't realistic, but this show has always been a bit over the top, and I don't think that's something new. These elements have always existed in the show. And another element that has always existed in this show is their mid-season finales. You may not have noticed this structure, but if you take a look at every season and and their 5th episodes. They are all as exciting and story affecting as your episode 1s and your episode 10s, usually containing some of your favourite fight scenes, as well as wrapping up some story arcs earlier than you would have expected. Take a look at season 1. In episode 5, Miguel finally stands up to his bullies and beats them all in that really cool cafeteria fight to defend Sam. At the start of season 1, we see that he starts karate to do that very thing, and you might assume they would save that confrontation for the finale of the season, but the show had bigger plans for the season finale and wanted those parallels between Daniel and Johnny with Miguel and Robbie. In the first half of season 1, it did not seem like it was necessarily going in that direction. When you take a look at season 5, something very similar happens. We have Robbie and Miguel finally fight it out to try and sort their differences, something that seems impossible due to their 4-season long rivalry. Them getting along seems like something that would take the whole season to do, and will potentially be a thing that happens at the end of season 5 leading into the final season. But no, it happens at the middle of season 5. They are both against Cobra Kai now, and yet they still can't see that they should be on the same side. In order to take them down like they do in the finale, they need to work together. Their disagreement has to be solved early on to aid the story that the season has planned. The rest of the season doesn't work if we do not see them get along. This finale, or at least mini finale we see every 5 episodes, is something the show has always had, even now. You might not notice it in this 5 parts, but it's because they kind of do it in reverse. Unlike other seasons, like I mentioned earlier, we start with everybody on good terms. As this season progresses, we then get introduced to some conflicts, but this time the show does the opposite of what they usually do. By episode 5, rather than resolve a few of the conflicts we have and leave some of the others going for the rest of the season, they instead create more conflicts for the coming 2 parts. Rather than Daniel and Johnny fixing their issues for the tournament, they push each other away so much that it feels irreparable. Rather than Tori finally being free of Cobra Kai, the show forces more tragedy upon her, causing her to lash out against her newfound friends and just forcing her to return to Kreese, fighting against all of her new friends once again by the last episode. For me, it's an exciting way to end this first part, as it gives these next 2 parts that excitement we were missing. There is now stakes and tension going into it. As a satisfying place to end for 5 months, I'm not too sure. It ends with things worse than they started. Getting only this setup for the story can feel disheartening, and can easily make people believe the show has lost its footing. If you watching are one of those people, I am sorry you feel that way about the show, but please stay hopeful. If you have truly enjoyed these last 5 seasons of the show, then this 6th one, by the end, should also not let you down. It's just too early to judge because we just don't have the bigger picture. And I think once we have that, this season will be equally as exceptional. Now, as much as I feel like season 5, as of now, seems like it could be a better finale for this whole show, I have faith they will nail the conclusion to this epic story they have made for the last 6 years, despite this strange start. But let me know in the comments what you thought of this first part of Cobra Kai Season 6. And while you're down there, if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.